A routine traffic stop in Parma Heights, Ohio, quickly turned into something far more serious on the evening of March 2, 2025. What started as a simple enforcement stop over dark window tint and an unusual license tag would soon escalate into a tense confrontation, a police pursuit, and multiple felony charges. Officer Betta of the Parma Heights Police Department was on patrol when he noticed a vehicle traveling with windows that appeared to be excessively tinted. From the officer's perspective, it was difficult to see inside the car, which immediately raised concerns. But that wasn't the only issue. When the officer looked closer at the back of the vehicle, he noticed something else unusual. Instead of a standard Ohio license plate or any recognized state registration, the car displayed a strange tag that didn't appear to belong to any official government authority. Because both excessive window tint and improper plates are violations of Ohio traffic law, the officer decided to initiate a traffic stop. The vehicle pulled over without incident, and the officer approached the driver's side window. Inside the car was a 31-year-old woman named Nia McLennan from Chicago, Illinois. At first, the interaction appeared to be a routine conversation between a driver and an officer, but within seconds, the tone of the encounter began to shift. The officer politely asked the driver to roll the window down a little further so he could hear her clearly. Then he explained the reason for the stop. He told her that the windows were heavily tinted and that the vehicle didn't appear to have a valid license plate. The driver quickly pushed back on the officer's claim. She insisted that there were plates on the vehicle, stating that there was one on the front and one on the back. However, the officer explained that the tag he observed was not recognized as a valid plate issued by any state. From there, the conversation became increasingly unusual. When the officer asked where she was from, the driver responded in a way that immediately raised eyebrows. Instead of simply stating Illinois or Chicago, she said she was from Morocco, then clarified that she meant a corporate state called Illinois. The officer then asked the most routine question in any traffic stop, whether she had a driver's license. Instead of handing over a license, the driver presented what she called a nationality card. She claimed the card had been issued by a consulate and said it served as her identification. However, she refused to physically hand the card to the officer, saying she had been told not to give it to law enforcement. At this point, the officer explained that under Ohio law, drivers are required to present a valid driver's license when requested during a traffic stop. The driver immediately disagreed with the premise of the request. She claimed she was not driving at all. According to her argument, driving is a commercial activity that involves transporting goods or passengers for money. She insisted she was merely traveling, which she believed placed her outside the scope of motor vehicle regulations. The officer made it clear that this distinction didn't change the situation. In the eyes of the law, operating a motor vehicle on a public roadway still requires a valid driver's license, regardless of the purpose of the trip. Despite repeated explanations, the driver refused to provide a license. She eventually provided her name but refused to give her date of birth. Under Ohio law, officers are permitted to require identifying information such as name, address, and date of birth during a lawful detention. Because the driver refused to comply with these basic identification requirements, the officers began considering alternative ways to confirm her identity. As the interaction continued, the officer noticed another unusual detail. The vehicle's VIN number, the unique identification number normally visible through the windshield, appeared to be covered with tape. When asked about it, the driver claimed the car was not under United States jurisdiction and therefore did not need to display the VIN. At this point, a supervising sergeant arrived at the scene. The supervisor calmly attempted to resolve the situation and once again asked the driver to step out of the vehicle. Under U.S. Supreme Court precedent, officers are legally allowed to order drivers out of their vehicles during a traffic stop. But the driver refused. Even after multiple warnings that refusing to exit the vehicle could lead to arrest for obstructing official business, she remained inside the car and continued arguing about legal authority and jurisdiction. Then, the situation escalated dramatically. Without warning, the driver suddenly placed the car in drive and pulled away from the scene. Officers quickly returned to their vehicles and initiated a pursuit. With emergency lights and sirens activated, several patrol cars followed the fleeing vehicle through the streets. Fortunately, the pursuit did not involve extremely high speeds, but it still posed a serious public safety risk. Eventually, officers were able to stop the vehicle using a specialized police cruiser equipped with a device known as the grappling bumper. This tool allows officers to safely entangle a fleeing vehicle's rear wheel with a tether, bringing the car to a controlled stop. Once the vehicle was disabled, officers surrounded it and began issuing clear commands. They ordered the driver to exit the vehicle and walk backwards towards them. After several commands, she complied and was taken into custody without further incident. Following her arrest, detectives interviewed her to understand why she had fled from the traffic stop. She claims she believed her safety was in danger when officers put on gloves and prepared to remove her from the vehicle. However, investigators pointed out that fleeing from a traffic stop is considered a felony in Ohio, especially if it results in a police pursuit. A grand jury later indicted her on several charges, including 2 counts of failure to comply with a police order, 1 count of obstructing official business, and 1 related to fraudulent actions involving a vehicle identification number. The incident serves as a reminder that routine traffic stops can escalate quickly when drivers refuse lawful instructions. While disagreements with police can always be addressed later in court, attempting to argue legal theories during a stop, or worse, fleeing the scene, can turn a minor situation into a serious criminal case. In the end, what began as a simple traffic violation ended with felony charges, a police pursuit, and a case that is still making its way through the legal